And regarding the data, there has been a lot of talk on Twitter and other places I've read regarding inconsistencies in the data. Well, we know about the Philly Fed numbers being off, and then the NFP, the establishment versus the household surveys, how the multiple job holders are getting counted. Since they're appearing on more than one payroll, they're getting counted more than once, and they're maybe inflating those numbers. Do you find any of that relevant, or is that just noise to you?
Well, I think this is a good it's a good example of dealing with the uncertainties of macroeconomic data. And I've spent essentially a career looking at not just the data itself, but understanding and appreciating what we call sort of the goodness of the data. And I think there's many times in which what you get is you get a conflicting set of reads about what's going on for all sorts of good reasons, in the sense of like there's sampling error, there's issues with methodologies, there's all sorts of things like that. And I think the most important thing to do in those circumstances is to triangulate. And I think, you can't just look at one data source, because what you can always find one data source, almost always find, except maybe in the extreme booms and the depths of a depression, you can basically always find something that will point to a positive or a negative. And that's, so that's fine. There's people out there in the market who point to things that are positive somewhat exclusively, and people who point to things that are negative somewhat exclusively. And my recommendation on these sorts of cases is to triangulate across different pieces of information in order to get a holistic understanding. We get all sorts of different pieces of information, ranging from various ISM employment surveys all the way to, the household survey, to the establishment survey, to, initial claims. And so there's a whole wide series of information there, some of which is realer, is what I like to describe it as. So like often you'll find initial claims is realer in the sense of like there are actually people submitting actual applications of, claims for unemployment that get added up by county and state and to the country as a whole. So that's a bit realer than some of the survey information. But really there's all this different information. And so you're best off, when you look at it, to just sort of add it all up and kind of average the whole thing to say, where when I look at all of that different data, where does it net me out at?